One of the big challenges of making an Olympic-style game in 2019 is that we've played these types of titles many times in the past. It's all button tapping as quickly as you possibly can for sprinting and hurdling at the right time. But Sega has been trying different things by fusing together the beloved Mario and Sonic franchises. This is Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games Tokyo 2020. It's a long title, and there are tons of mini games in here. They've always been sort of like an assemblage of party games, and they are meant to be played in multiplayer. So once again, this is not the best experience if you're just going to be playing this alone, but I'll tell you what, I had a smile on my face. Sweet! They've included a story mode in this game, and they've done something quite clever. Seeing as Japan is irrefutably one of the birthplaces of video games, what they've done is they've injected a game within a game. So you're playing the story mode, and all of a sudden a tiny little retro game console is found, and it zaps all of these Mario and Sonic characters back in time into a pixelated retro-style Olympic game. So you get to play a bunch of these different events as if they were drawn back in the 80s, which is cool, except Sonic and those characters are like lifted from the Genesis. So it's a weird fusion of 1980s Mario-type characters and 1990s Sonic-type characters, but it works. You get what they're doing here.
A round of applause for our athletes!
I would say that the story mode in the game is a little tedious. I think the dialogue is pretty mundane between the characters, and it takes a long time, you know, as they bounce back and forth going, oh no, what are we gonna do? How are we gonna save Mario? How are we gonna find Bowser? You know, I just thought it was a little bit too dry. It could have been, you know, a lot more engaging, a lot more humorous. You know, I'm coming off of a game like Luigi's Mansion 3, which has very little dialogue, but all kinds of incredible emotions coming off of all the characters, and this is just so dry. The characters are just standing there. Works okay when we're in the kind of the retro thing, but when we cut back to the beautifully modeled 3D characters and they're just sort of just hanging there like dead puppets, it's kind of lame, and it just takes so long to progress through all that stuff, so you're constantly just pressing you don't even want to pay attention to what everybody's talking about. You just want to get to the events and get to those mini games. Not only are you doing the 10 events that are included in this story mode, which you can play outside of the story mode, by the way, but you also have these little mini games, like you might be racing Bowser in a canoe or racing a bullet train or something like that.
Second place!
I enjoyed all those little extra elements added into the story mode. I thought that was really fun. And you can also play those little mini games outside the story campaign as well. And of course, the meat and potatoes of this experience, though, are the 21 Olympic events that you get. Hurdles, you get long jumps, you get all kinds of race events, you get swimming, you get surfing, which I thought was really cool. Karate, skateboarding, which is hence why I'm here. They're fun, man, and they're very well animated and quite beautiful as well. I think the visuals are really well defined and very cartoony and endearing. You also get some dream events, like a shooting gallery type thing where you're running through an area and you're popping at all kinds of targets. It's all motion controls, though, which was a little bit strange, but you get used to it. There's a dream karate sequence in there as well. There's some horse racing. You know what? There's a nice collection of different things to do, which is fun. And of course, what you're trying to do in each of these events is get the best time or get the furthest distance or the most points, and then you're ranked and you get the medals or you don't. And you can compete against friends locally, which is the most enjoyable way to play a game like this, or you can play against players online as well, and there's leaderboards and all kinds of stat tracking and all that stuff.
Oh yeah!
It's the same types of mechanics over and over again, apart from, say, something like surfing or skateboarding, where it's a little bit more, you know, approaching the idea of a skateboarding experience, like a Tony Hawk skateboarding experience. It's not as good as that, but it's in that direction, where you're jumping off ramps and doing spins and flips and stuff.
Whoa, awesome!
It is very much like the copy and paste Olympic experiences that we've had before gameplay-wise. It's not going to shock you with its complete reinvention over how you play one of these things. I've always had difficulty when you have to spin and release a giant metal ball in time or something like that. Those things have always been frustrating for me over the decades that I've been reviewing Olympic-style games. And I can remember reviewing a million of these types of games with Tommy Tallarico, who seemed to have these double-jointed hands, and it was just crazy. Like, you couldn't even see how fast everything was moving on his hands as he was button-tapping like a maniac, and he was always winning in all of those games, and it was frustrating as hell. So I'm having flashbacks. if you play with people that aren't as talented playing Olympics games as Tommy was, I think you'll have a very good time because the challenge usually is pretty even across the board, and you can play with young people or older people, and everybody's got some ability at tapping these buttons and timing things properly.
That record beat the last one.
I would caution you that you've got to be kind of into these Olympic-style games, but I think this is one of the most accessible of the Olympic games that I've played over my many years. I also think that it's very fun that the Olympics, which has a long history of being very strict with its licensing, and there are a lot of rules with how you can create Olympic-style games, and that's been a frustration for a lot of developers over the years, but they've got this good partnership going with Sega and Nintendo, so there's a lot more freeform and a lot more creativity involved in the design of these events, and that makes them much more enjoyable as video games. So, it's a fun collection of mini games that you're going to get some value with, but you've got to be into this style of gameplay. If you love the Olympics and you love these different characters, I think you're going to have a good time on this. It's a good fit on the Switch, and I like the fact that because it's an exclusive and it's tied in with all of these characters, there's something a little bit more special about this. When I've seen the Olympics titles over the years where it's a game that's ported to a bunch of different systems, a lot of the personality and the charm of that experience gets sort of sucked out of it. There is a lot of charm in here. Even though the story mode's a little tedious, there's still charm in there. There's still a lot of stuff that's going to make you smile. Even those, like that retro art style is just so damn cool. They've done a good job. I'm going to give Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games Tokyo 2020 an 8 out of 10.